Hi, hi. For today's song of the day, we're looking at Sun Kill Moon's Garden of Lavender. I've been back into Sun Kill Moon lately. He's released yet another in his series of diary albums, I guess you'd call them. So, starting with Benji in 2014, he's just continually released these albums that are like very autobiographical. All of the songs are just kind of about incidents in his life, things he's thinking or feeling, things that like matter to him a lot, and his opinions on them. All kind of normal songwriting convention has gone out the window. They've become more and more sort of rambly, unfiltered. I love it conceptually as a big fan of things like Karl Noskard and autofiction, and as like a pretty constant diaryist myself. Um, I was really big into Benji and Universal Themes, which is where the song we're going to talk about comes from, is on. I liked Even Better. But then Common as Light and Love are Red Valleys of Blood. I didn't get into as much. It's like really, really long. It's over 2 hours long. So I didn't have the time to listen to it as much as I did the previous two, and kind of like get into it. Um, and then This Is My Dinner. Again, just a very kind of incidental picture, I guess I would say. A picture that doesn't seem like it's at all framed or explicit, but just a picture that he happened to take. I haven't even listened to that one. I thought I ought to listen to this one a bit more to kind of get more immersed in the lore before I moved on. But now he's come out with this one, which based on the title is really exciting to me. I also want to die in New Orleans, of course, a reference to Suicide Boys' album last year, I Want to Die in New Orleans, which I really, really liked. So, whatever connection he's hoping to imply with this, I really don't know. I don't know. Their music's genre wise are about as far as you can get from each other. And yet, I don't know. I feel like this will be somehow in the spirit of those Suicide Boys in a way that really intrigues me. So hopefully I'll get a chance to listen to that soon. And maybe This Is My Dinner first, so I get caught up with what's been going on with him. So this is a pretty good example of his songwriting. Just kind of starts with this time and place little anecdote. Flying home from somewhere. A lot of the music on this album is about him traveling around and touring and being in a movie shot in Switzerland, the wonderful, wonderful movie Youth, which I would recommend to anyone who'd like a nice, beautiful, sad movie. Um, and the recurring image is one of his Garden of Lavender, which I find quite intriguing. It's such a I don't know. I don't really want to talk along these lines, but it's like a very feminine plant, and caring so much about his garden of such a feminine plant seems at first at odds with his singing style, which is always very kind of gruff and masculine, and his sort of I don't know. I would say in general he presents himself as sort of an iconoclast, as someone who cares not for societal nitpickery or anything like that. And yet he's really wrapped up with this idea of his garden of lavender. Um, I love this. I'm not sure what my lavender symbolized, but inside my heart cried because, of course, he does not make it home in time to save his lavender. And then, even though he's not really sure about the symbolic meaning of his lavender, he sees it clearly as an example of his heart being drawn to the small, out of the way things, which is a common thing that you'll see in his songwriting. Is that subtle things, small tragedies, or the most kind of tender human aspects of larger tragedies are what he really gravitates to. So, he talks about this some more, caring for the animals around his yard. And then this is like the point in the album, or the point in the song that really captures me every single time, is the transition here. And I think Universal Themes has this the best of any of his albums, where the structure is such that you kind of have this rambling verse, and then it breaks away from that into a much simpler verse, a much more kind of immediate imagery, rather than kind of more storytelling and narrativization. Straight from was on the flight home from, like setting some time and place, talking about what he was seeing and feeling, to just straight up, I see the big orange tabby cat getting warm on the cover of the hot tub, turns over on his back looking for a belly rub. Just the things he sees, the things he notices. And not until when he hears his girlfriend's car coming up the driveway, and it fills my heart with joy. And then it shifts so like effortlessly from the sensory and the immediate to this philosophical existential questioning. I know it'll end someday, and someone else will be sleeping in my mountain house, wondering who lived here before, just like I sometimes do. Isn't that beautiful? The idea of being able to really picture in your mind that after you die, someone will be living in your house, thinking vaguely of you, just wondering, just the way that you wonder about who lived there before. Just a kind of quiet contemplation, not really amounting to much. It reminds me a lot of a video that I really like, where Jim Leahy, real name forgotten, the actor that plays Jim Leahy on Trailer Park Boys, talks about stonemasonry. Yeah, John Dunsworth. This video is really, really beautiful. Basically, it's John Dunsworth, who's a very, very talented actor, talking about the stonemasonry he does on his property. He just builds up kind of stone walls and little concrete walkways and things like that. And there's a part where he's talking about how he goes, well, I imagine after I die, people will wonder, like, who made all this stuff? Who set all this stuff out here? And that gave him some sort of peace, that people would kind of, not that they would make a big deal out of it, not that they would celebrate endlessly his achievements, but just that it was something big there, physical. They would look back and wonder, who made all of that stuff? And now John Dunsworth has passed away, and I'm sure this still exists out there. It hasn't been worn away by the seas yet. I don't know, just that kind of distance on your own life. It's very hard to achieve, and it's very hard to not kind of get freaked out about. But I think in moments like this, I don't know, it's just so nice. And the way the music just swells and transcends in this part is indescribable. A lot of this album too, in the same way that the more abstract philosophical verses, or not even abstract, sorry, but this sort of immediate sensory sort of verses, and the more like rambling daily narrative journaling verses contrast. There's also a musical contrast where these are kind of more like riff based. He's really strumming the guitar and chords, and then in these moments it fades into this beautiful, gorgeous, like kind of plucked guitar sound. If you can kind of picture what I'm talking about, it's easy just to listen to it and see what I mean. But oh man, my heart every time just leaps with joy when it raises up like this. And all the other songs have this sort of contrast, but this one, it almost like starts out in the kind of quiet contemplative mode, and then it goes like even further, So I don't know. It's very, very beautiful. This is real classic Mark Kozelek later period songwriting, where he goes, was on a flight somewhere I can't remember, which nicely matches the was on the flight home from, well, it doesn't matter. but then remembering what it was several lines later and throwing it in, and then kind of segueing from that into the anecdotes, which have just these kind of strange, unnecessary details. He's still stewing about his dried up lavender. The idea of the baby possum hissing at him maybe connects back to his encounter with a possum in the opening track, The Possum, which is another fantastic song. And then this part here, I think, is very interesting in the way that it's delivered. Very rarely does he talk about his dreams or anything like that. And kind of the poetic logic of this dream seems like it somewhat relates to this idea of someone living in his house after he dies. That kind of connection, you know, picking up a seed, passing it to another's beak. But all throughout the album, there's this kind of double singing thing where he layers his voice over a few times. And it's really pronounced here because he says, passing it to another's beak in his like low voice, like really, really quickly, and then elongates the more falsetto singing over top of it. And it's like really strange to me, this sort of arrhythmic, disconnected double singing. And I wonder if it has some sort of symbolic meaning. I'm not really sure what it would be necessarily. But more than that, it just sounds really, really nice. It kind of reminds me of the duet in Only Skin by Joanna Newsom, which we featured on Song of the Day about a week or so ago. I don't know. I think I'm just really attracted to that kind of harmony where you have something low going quickly and then something high taking its time over top on top of that. I'm sure I can think of other examples of it too. I should kind of look into it some more. Yeah, it's nice. And then at the end is another classic of the modern era, Mark Kozelek. I think more and more he's kind of transitioning into this, which is all pretense of singing and rhyming and meter are dissolved, and he just sort of softly speaks about things that happened to him recently over top of, again, just some very richly beautiful guitar playing. This reminds me so much of Nosgard. Just kind of the things he remembers, kind of the understatement of his own emotions. I got pretty choked up listening to them, which is, you know, that's that's something. So the story here is that they're playing his song that that Gomez, this band, covers his song because they know he's there. It's like, yeah, that's that's a pretty amazing thing to happen in your career. So to say, I got pretty choked up listening to them. You know, that's definitely true. And then, so anyhow, and this story too is like very confusing to me. I haven't actually investigated this. Let's check it out. So, what line does he have about Niels Klein? But I hate Derek Trucks and Niels Klein. I hate Niels Klein. Well, I that's pretty clear. I can see why the fan had that question. I don't even see what it rhymes with. That Klein. But why? But why? That's so strange. Anyways, yeah, this kind of like anticlimactic thing. Walked back to the KOS with my guitar and got in my bed, called my girlfriend, and fell asleep. It's so nice, and it's like you can just imagine all of the emotions and feelings and experiences that he's had bound up with him as he's trying to fall asleep. And yeah, I don't know. I also like the connection with that he mentions his guitar right at the end, and then kind of the climax of this really wonderful part is him talking about how when he sees the Christmas lights, he was reminded of when he got his guitar as a kid. That's really nice. That's really nice. So yeah, very beautiful song. Very typical, I think, of this kind of period of his career. So it's not for everybody. I know a lot of people find this to be really excessive and uninteresting. Um, and I can understand, especially when the albums are like 2.5 hours long. But I really recommend to check it out because if it is something that you connect with, it's so hypnotizing. It's so beautiful. It really is like unlike anything else. So yeah, that's that.